And then we have spiritual slavery. This one may take a little bit more dialing into. Spiritual slavery. It is such a deep part of our baseline. It's not even funny. It's deeply, deeply embedded into the baseline of humanity. And I have to say, spiritual slavery is one of the ones that I really find triggering. And this is partially why I'm so confrontive in certain angles about spiritual leaders, religion, spiritual practices, and teachings. I'm pretty neutral about most things, right? Or accepting, if not neutral. But when it comes to systems that hold people in a spiritual enslavement, that actually really, I'm gonna I'm I'm gonna whack at that one, right? Which you guys have seen me do. I've taken some pretty hard whacks at some of the spiritual distortions out there. But really, what spiritual slavery looks like, it's taking advantage of one's innocence and devotion. It's taking advantage of a person's spiritual love for Creator. For, I mean, you can even say Jesus, right? Because when I was a kid, intuitively, the Christ energy, I loved that. I knew I loved that energy. That energy I really recognized, and I loved that. And because I was brought up in a more conservative Christian mindset, I thought that that was Jesus. So I would say how much I love Jesus, okay? Because that's the only reference I had. It wasn't until I was like 11, 12 years old that I find out that there's other religious, spiritual practices in the world. And I can't tell you how relieved I was. I was like, when I found out that there's Buddhist monks and nuns, and there were, there's thousands and thousands of spiritual traditions and religions, I was so relieved. That really set me free in a lot of ways inside. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I'm 11 years old and I find out for the first time there's something called Buddhism. I was like, what? Oh yeah, and then indigenous beliefs, the red road, as they call that. That too, that totally rocked my world. Oh my gosh, I was so relieved. I was so freaking relieved, because it really, I can intuitively sense this spiritual narrowing that I was in. It was like my spiritual energy was getting taken advantage of. So the spiritual devotion, some of the things, the way it looks like is, these feelings of not being devoted enough, not giving enough devotion and enough prayer, being pious enough, being righteous enough, being pure enough. All those are part of spiritual manipulation. But then there's this undercurrent one that is so prevalent within the light worker world, within the spiritual world, within the religious world. And that is, if I give enough, if I serve pure enough with enough sincerity, then I will be blessed in my life. Who believed that one? Who's in that one, right? Me too, I was in there. And I had an experience where I was full on, I still am devoted, but in a completely different way. I was full on devoted to following the guidance and impulses from the Pachamama and Great Spirit at the time. That was how I addressed my spirituality. And I would cliff dive as soon as I get the hit. Boom! I'm diving. I'm diving. I'm diving. And then I do a dive, and the dive was opening a Stargate. I had no idea about Stargate mechanics, anything like this. Um, it was my first exposure to even what a Stargate was. And this was many, many, many years ago, 2006. And I go and I do it, stick my finger in the spiritual lightning socket, and I'm okay. My kids were okay, but my travel companions and her kids, they were not okay. There was a terrible car crash, and people died, including one of the children. And actually, my friend also died several times, but it didn't stick. I think she, it was about 6 times that she died, and then was in a coma for a while, and then finally came out of it. Came out of it with significant brain damage. Anyway, so but that was a huge crisis of faith for me, because I was just like, I can't serve more than I am. I'm giving everything I have. How can something like this happen? I'm giving everything I have. How can this happen? Right? Because I had this belief that if I serve in the purest, most sincerest way possible that I could muster, I would be blessed and protected. Just sit with that. Do you believe that? And I hate to burst the bubble, but I'm doing this because I want to help you guys. I don't want you guys to have to go through it. If you have to go through it, you will. But if you don't have to go through it, you'll hear my message in this. That is a belief. That is a lie. That is a lie right there. That if you give everything you have and you sincerely devote everything in every way to your spiritual practice, that you will be blessed and protected. That is not true. Not because we don't get protection, we do, but the protection has more to do with us fulfilling our purpose, us stepping into our authentic truth and living from that place. It doesn't mean circumstances won't be difficult. It doesn't mean life won't be hard. Okay? It means that we are anchored in our truth and are living our lives in extraordinary ways. Extraordinary ways. And these words are going to take maybe a little while to sink in and start and make sense, but sit with what I'm talking about. I mean, I've been through the fire, folks, more than once, because I'm kind of dense sometimes, and I needed that. But please sit with what I'm talking about and see if any of these pieces ring true for you. And if they do, I invite you to open yourself to having a different relationship to spirit. Having a different relationship with spirit other than I do this for you, you do this for me. That's a transactional thing. That's actually very close in resonance to extortive love. Okay. Mm-hmm.